Hello and welcome to the Powerful Personal Brand Podcast, where my guests and I share tips to help and to inspire you to build a great personal brand, to increase your visibility and authority. On today's show, we are doing something a little different, but we are talking about personal branding for college admission. If that is what you're looking to do, get into a great school, you definitely want to listen and watch this podcast. I am your host, Claire Bahn, and on today's episode, I am so excited to be joined by Stacey Ross Cohen. Stacey is an award-winning brand professional who earned her stripes on Madison Avenue and at major television networks before launching her own agency. Stacey is the CEO and founder of Co-Communications. She is also a TEDx speaker and author. Stacey's book, Brand Up, The Ultimate Playbook for College and Career Success, was just released in April 2023. And Barbara Corcoran from ABC's Shark Tank calls the book a must if you want to excel at networking and entrepreneurship in the classroom and in the boardroom. Stacey, thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to have you here today.
And Claire, thank you. I'm so glad we connected and just so happy to be here, my West Coast new friend.
I mean, I never really thought about personal branding for teens. So let's talk about that. And why is it important?
Yeah, and just like a little bit of the backstory. So I'm a professional marketer, and when I saw my daughter in high school, I realized, very competitive school district where a lot of the kids had 4.2 GPAs, the importance of standing out, marketing yourself at an earlier age. So it's an incredibly important skill. It's really a life skill, right? I always say personal branding is for life, but to start developing it in high school is really, really key, especially because this is how you get on top of a decision maker's list. And so just jumping to your question about why is this important for teens, I just want to clarify there's a real misconception. A lot of people do not like the word personal branding, and they're like, oh, it's narcissistic, it's about me. But it really isn't. Personal branding is about what is your value to others. What is your superpower, and what is the gift of you. And again, what is going to land you on the top of a decision maker's list? And to be able to answer the question, why choose you? And now more than ever, both college admission officers as well as job recruiters, they are looking at kids' social media. So a teen's digital footprint is essential. So personal branding has become more of a requirement. At one point, maybe it was more of a luxury, but people are searching online. I always tell kids Google is the new resume. I don't know if you've heard this statistic, but 6 million Google searches in 1 minute. So people are searching for you, Claire. They're searching for me. They're searching. What do you want them to find?
Well, I always say that if, personal branding is not for you, it's for your ideal audience, whatever that ideal audience is. So that's exactly how you put it, just in a slightly different way. And yeah, personal branding is not for you. If it's all me, then yeah, it is selfish and you're doing it wrong. So let's remember, personal branding is not for you. But so what's interesting is, obviously I didn't know about personal branding as a term when I was going, to college, but I did know that I needed to be well-rounded. So I also, and I would also think your personal brand isn't necessarily just what you're putting online, but also like what sports are you doing? What organizations do you belong in? Are you the head of student council? Are you doing, anything, aside from that? Are you volunteering, that kind of thing? Because I remember that's what people were looking for.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes. It's true because personal brand is really, what your passions, your experience, your achievements, your values. So it's really what makes you you. And so it's offline and online activities as well. The focus of of the book is a little bit more online because the game has changed so much now that admissions officers are looking at social media. So it's like a high school student that's college bound is so much more than an application and a test score. They're looking
Hmm.
also at character. They're
Yeah.
looking for kids that will be a good fit on their campus.
Hmm.
So again, it's more of, and you were pointing to that, it's a very holistic kind of approach.
One of the thoughts that comes to my mind is, do you ever advise that like students build their own website to kind of
Yes,
put all like essentially their online resume? So if if
yes,
you SEO it and it shows up in top, if someone's
right.
doing Google search, you're number one. Here's everything you want to know about me. Do you advise that?
100%. As a matter of
Yeah.
fact, and you'll probably laugh, my business partner at Co-Communications, she has two young boys, and she was struggling with the name of the first one. And I said to her, but I was quite serious. I said, listen, before you finalize, your son's name, just make sure that the URL is available, because it's not a bad idea to, I tell parents, purchase the URL. You don't know what your son or daughter, how they will develop. And,
Hmm.
even I think for myself, I have a very common name, Stacy Cohen. So I was very lucky in the early days of the internet. I did purchase my URL. It just so happens now, if you Google Stacey Cohen, there's a million that came up. So then for my personal brand, I went with my full name, Stacey Ross Cohen. But absolutely, a website is one way. I love video. Again,
Hmm.
it tells a teen's narrative, or anyone's narrative, like
Hmm.
nothing else. I even say to people in general, pay attention to even to your email signature line, right? Because that's a great piece of real estate.
Yeah.
Highlight something about you that shows your character and your value.
I guess it's kind of sad. I mean, you can't really think about it. These kids are starting high school, and you're just like, okay, now it's yeah, the fun is over. Get serious. It's kind of sad. You're like, the rest of your
Well,
life is so
well,
serious.
yes, yes. You know what? And it is sad, but I
Yeah,
also think, like, I'm not telling kids not to be themselves.
yeah.
They should be themselves, because the other thing is that whether it's a job recruiter or a college admission officer, they can smell a fake miles away. I've
Oh
spoken
yeah.
to so many of them. But so you want to be you. You just want to let the best you out. And within that, this is just about, you have to be intentional about this. Like,
Hmm.
it's like you've got to take control of your message and your story and what you're putting out there. And
Hmm.
again, it's like guidance counselors have typically told students, don't post on social media. But I say, yes, post, but show a video of you on a college tour, or show a video like you had mentioned about, like, extracurricular activities. So it would be something like, maybe a kid is donating his or her time to a local food bank. Show
Hmm.
pictures of that, show video of that. Again, make it come alive.
Yeah. I think that's really really key. So I applied to three schools. I know a lot of people apply to many schools. So when you're essentially packaging yourself, do you think that students need to package themselves differently for every university they apply to?
You know what? That's a great question. I don't think I've ever been asked precisely that question.
That I have
I
to
think
say that was technically I was going through this with my co-founder and he was like, "Hey, let's ask this question." So that was
that,
his.
that is that is a really good question. I think, you need um, your magnetic messages, let's call them. Some people call them key messages or sticky messages, like, but you always need to, and I know this as a marketer, is you have to think about who your target audience is and what is going to be meaningful to them. Again, these days you've got to be a master of first impressions. So you got to figure out, like, what is it about me that will most impress them? Now, let's just say these three schools, they, more likely than not, your message will stay the same, but there could be one school in particular that has a different area of study. When we use the word package, because I use package a lot, this has to be authentic. It really has to
Hmm.
be authentic. But you may want to check out a school and find out what characteristics they find important in their student body and make sure that you emphasize it. Is, for example, a lot of the college websites will say these are the 10 characteristics that we like in our students, and it'll be like leadership, collaboration, creativity. And so maybe one of those schools might have a different one, so you may want to play to that a little bit.
When someone's going through this whole process, I don't know, like when do you think someone should actually start this process? So you say teens, but are we like literally talking about like 13 years old, or like when they start high school? Like what are you talking about? When should they start really thinking about all this?
So some people might say that this should start in middle school, but I'm not a proponent of that. But I do think it should start in high school. Now, my first experience with this, which was what it was like mind blowing, was that I was writing for Huffington Post at the time and just really focusing on personal branding. And when I saw my daughter going through this experience, I was like, I wonder if there's schools that are teaching personal branding, digital leadership. Found a school, a private school in North Broward, Florida. Not only did they teach it, but they made it mandatory for all 14-year-olds.
Wow.
And I have to say what happened is that I did not interview the teacher that created the curriculum. However, I wrote about it. He contacted me. We became fast friends, and he's actually a co-contributor of the book. And then what happened is that I was going to Florida to visit friends, and he's like, "Hey, Stace, would you sit in one of my classes?" And I was like, "Oh, yes, that's such a gift." Sat in his class and was blown away. I was totally blown away how these kids they were listening to music to figure out what their story was and what their superpower was and what their passion was. And they were creating vision boards. Because think about it, typically a 14-year-old, they don't really know themselves, but this class started uncovering because there was a lot of self-reflection. Came back to New York, wrote another Huffington Post article, and this one went viral. And so at that point, I knew I had something there, and that's when the book journey began. And the great thing is that I'm a marketer. I'm not an educator per se, but Jason Schaefer and also Alan Katzman contributed to the book. And Jason is an educator now. Believe it or not, he's teaching entrepreneurship to middle school kids. So
Crazy.
very innovative curriculum. There's actually one chapter in the book that is dedicated to entrepreneurship.
I know that when I was a kid, like had my own businesses. Like I would say, I have a restaurant. My parents would show up like at the dining table, and I would serve them or whatever. Or I had like I was a, I was a travel agent. That tells you definitely that yeah. Anyway, I may have aged myself, but yeah, like all of these things that I would do. But yeah, no one ever was like, here's what you need to know for entrepreneurship.
And
Um,
you have it in your DNA, right? Because I do as
I
well. I started my actual first business when I was 14, but entrepreneurial skills are not just for kids that want to start businesses.
yeah.
It's just such a great skill to have, even if you're working at a Fortune 500 company, because it's about taking risks, being innovative, always challenging yourself, thinking outside the box. So they're really great skills. The other thing that I wanted to add to the conversation, there is one age though. So going back to your question, do I think it's necessary like 14 years old? No, but by the age of 16, because that's when most kids are really starting to think about admissions, I tell kids they need a LinkedIn by the time that they're 16. And I tell their parents, you hand your kid the car keys. Okay, you're responsible enough. You need a LinkedIn, because it's a whole new world with college admissions. And so they need to be engaging with their school. They need to be linking in with alumni. department chairs, admission officers, and and professors, and
Hmm.
and liking their content, and even starting contributing content. And again, one of the most important skills in life is networking, right? Like, I have two girls, they're both in their 20s, and I've always told them that you're both two very smart girls, but in this life, it's not always what you know, it's who you know. And of course, like, they were like, oh, yeah, we don't need any.
Or with personal branding, it's who knows you. That's what we
Yes,
talk about
thank you.
too,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes, yes. Thank you. Yes. Right. So it's like, but to get that muscle developed early on, and know that to to really use these skills, because the saying, it's like your network is your net worth. So it
Yeah.
really is important to start curating that at an early age.
Telling me all this, I'm just like, I like am so glad that I'm not a teenager right now. Like the stress I have of having, because it's a lot of work. I'm like literally, because I did not grow up with a lot of money. So that meant I would have had to do all that stuff myself. I think someone that, you have a lot of money, you hire someone to do the social media for your kid. Like me, like writing was stressful. Knowing who I was, what the F, man, no.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, no, yeah, you know what?
I just, it's
I
so
I
stressful.
No, but I agree. But the one thing that I did want to share with you, that's such a great point, is that it's really important for me with this book to level the playing field, because I want to give all teens an edge, no matter what their path in life is. So
Yeah.
this is not just for kids that want to go into Ivy League schools. This is also for kids that maybe they want to go into a trade, like they want to be a hairdresser, they want to go into carpentry. This is like for every kid. And so, to that point, I am donating hundreds, probably thousands of books to youth organizations like Boys and Girls Clubs, the Y, Girls Inc. And because, again, like I said, my kids went to a very competitive. They were in a great school district, and I just, my hope is eventually to make personal branding, digital leadership part of every high school curriculum, and allow
Yeah.
every kid to achieve their goals, whatever they are in life.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I definitely, I once I kind of figured out that this was kind of the stuff that I needed to do as a kid, probably sophomore year. I single mom and all that sort of stuff, but I had a really amazing community at my very small school in Ingram, Texas, that they really just kind of rallied around me. It was just weird because everyone was, usually had the mother and the father. So teachers came out and were just like, we need to help Claire. She's really smart. We need to get her into a good school. So sophomore year, people started rallying around me. So I really give credit to those coaches and teachers that, it's crazy, and you kind of, you think about that and you're like, oh, thank God. I tell my husband and he's like, I cannot believe all the people that helped you. So there were, takes a whole village sometimes.
Yes, yes,
So
yes.
I think
And
it's great that you that you did that, because I think that once you kind of know, because my mother didn't know. She went back to school later, but she didn't know what I should be doing. She didn't know any of that sort of stuff. So the fact that I had people saying, hey, this is where you need to be. And then I would tell my mom and she's like, okay, great, listen to them. So I think
yes,
that that's
yes,
such a great
yes.
thing that you're doing.
Yeah. And first of all, I can feel your gratitude of all these
Yeah,
wonderful people that really supported you. But
definitely.
if you think about it, it's like and the rules of the game have changed. So what worked yesterday is not going to work today. A lot of parents, even in more privileged homes, still really don't understand, what's going on in college admissions. And when I tell them that their kid needs to register on, let's just say, their dream school's website, and schools are looking at big data to see demonstrated interest. Is this kid, if I accept them, are they going to come to the school? And they want yeses, right? So they're
Hmm.
looking, a lot of them are looking at something called demonstrated interest, and they're looking, has this student registered on our website? How often are they coming? How long are they staying when they visit? So it's like there are certain things that you need to know what to do now. And I also believe that um, that the times have accelerated it.
What tips can you give, teens and parents to help them, stand out and get accepted into their dream college?
Great question. And, I have a chapter in the book where I interviewed 42 admission officers and educational consultants. There's one, because again, coming from me, I'm not, and I do have some tips, but this is the one that I think is really the highlight, and could almost be like a tagline for the book. So one of the educational consultants, as we know, being able to distinguish yourself in meaningful ways is so important. And so this educational consultant said it best. He said, be one of 10, don't be in a pack of 9. And so it's a matter of figuring out. Think about it this way. If there's an admissions officer, she has 2 kids, they have similar GPAs, they have similar test scores. What is it that's going to make one of them stand out? Chances are maybe one kid played soccer, and maybe the other kid, they started a tutoring service for elementary or middle school kids. They're probably going to lean to the kid that started a business because it's different and it shows a lot of leadership skills. That's the other thing, is that kids need to showcase their best characteristics. And,
Yeah.
again, but at all touch points. So it has to be through social media, their applications, essays, interviews, and even teacher recommendations. So again, every touch point has to be solid. And then the last thing is, you've got to engage and connect with the college you're interested in.
Mm.
It is critical. You have to show them that you're interested. You have to show them, the love. If there's a kid that wants to go to Vanderbilt and the engineering program, they've got to connect with the chairperson of engineering, and also teens need to. They could still have fun on social media, but just watch out for your behavior and
Mhm.
just show pictures of you, again, in your extracurricular activities. Or if you're visiting a college, show pictures of you visiting the college and how much you're enjoying it. And look, smart kids are not always smart in social media. And a case in point is Harvard University. Harvard University has a 3.2% acceptance rate, which is, think of those numbers. And about in 2017, and this I had in my TEDx talk, but there were 10 kids, they got accepted into Harvard, and because of bad social media behavior, all of their admissions were revoked.
Wow.
So if you think about it, it's like they're brilliant. These kids are brilliant, but they were not brilliant on social media. So it's just a cautionary tale to, to just make sure you put all social media through what I call the pure test. Is it
Mhm.
positive? Is it respectful? Is it ethical? Is it unbiased?
Some of what you say is like, it's overwhelming to think about, that kids have to think about that now. But at the same time, when you're talking about differentiating yourself and things like that, I applied early admission. I graduated from UT Austin, but freshman year I went to Pepperdine. That was my dream school at the time. I was living in a small town in Texas, and I was like, I want to go back to California. So I applied early admission, and I got in early. I found out in December that I was accepted, and my mom still made me apply to 2 other schools. I was like, but I'm already in. She's like, no, you're gonna have backups. Um, And so then basically they went, I don't know, within a couple of months, they actually sent a letter to my mom saying that it was my essay that really just like got them. Like the whole admissions team was just like her essay. And I, again, I didn't have like a whole team helping me. I just had my English teacher read my essay before I sent it. But anyway, it said that my essay moved them so much that that was one of the things that differentiated me from everyone else. So I was
I
putting that into play, but no one told me what to write. I just wrote what
Yes,
was passionate to
yes.
me. A lot of what you say it resonates with me because I just was me. I mean, I didn't know how to be anyone else but me. I didn't, so I just put me into that, and it worked.
And
So
I would bet, I don't know what the topic of your essay was, but I would bet that you also showed vulnerability,
oh
like just
yes,
like humanness, because admission officers can tell when an essay is not written by a kid. And then, you have to worry about all the chat GPT stuff.
yes,
And,
yes.
so it's a whole new world. But I love that you were able to get that gem, that it was your essay that, that got you in, because again, that's what makes you human. It's your
It wa
story.
it is. Well, in high school I dealt with I had bulimia and so an eating disorder, and I felt like for me it was a lot of what I was seeing in magazines. I'm like half Middle Eastern. I've got some curves. I got a butt. All these things. It was before the Kardashians, so I felt like in a sea of waifs. I was like, where do I fit in? My big butt. Not that I hate it, but you know what I mean? When you don't
Yes,
look, you don't see
yes.
yourself represented. And so I basically was like, something needs to be done about all of these skinny people. It's impossible. It's like everyone wants to be that, but you literally have to starve yourself to be that. And that's just not healthy. So it was basically just kind of this like essentially an essay rant on how a teenager felt about what we were being fed essentially by the
Wow.
media.
That is so powerful. And
Yeah.
a lot of kids would feel shame by that,
Yeah.
but you made it into you turned it around and made it into like a strength and overcoming it, but recognizing that there is a problem out there. And
Yes.
really good for you. Because
Thank you.
it's like think like we're humans, right? And we have flaws. None of us are perfect. We It's okay to show your flaws. It really is. Like
Yeah.
admission officers, job recruiters, they're not looking for. There's never going to be a perfect candidate, but they're looking for someone. Again, this really goes back to is someone that stands out, has great character and values, and someone that is going to contribute to campus life, or if they're going right to the job market, to their careers.
Well, because I just think it also because we were talking about how it fitting with the school. My grandmother, for some reason, I don't know why, she didn't live in Houston, never grew up in Texas, but she was obsessed with me applying to Rice. I did not get into Rice. Rice is obviously harder to get into than Pepperdine, but if you look at the universities, they're so different. The admission staffs would be different. If you think about who the admission staff at Pepperdine would probably be, that essay would resonate with them being in Los Angeles more than it would be a group of people in Houston, probably all men. It just wouldn't resonate with the same. So when you're kind of thinking about how to tailor, think about the audience.
Yes,
I don't
yes,
know who it was, but it's just like being in Los Angeles, entertainment industry. I didn't think about all when I was writing, but it worked. It worked for Pepperdine. They were just like, oh yes.
yes,
Whereas at Rice,
yes,
they were just like, what? What? I want
yes.
someone that's going to talk about politics or this or that and blah, blah, blah. It's just different. And and it doesn't mean that the essay was bad. It just meant that it's not a good fit.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
And that's really smart. And it goes back to your question, like, do you show up differently for different, applications? And the question is, you have to customize everything, right? So
Hmm.
you just have to be very thoughtful and deliberate about how you're delivering yourself. But again, it has to be your authentic self. So it's
Yeah.
like you might make something a little bit more prominent with one school because you feel that it will resonate with them more opposed to another school. And part of that is you've got to do your due diligence, whether applying to college or job, you have to understand the culture.
Definitely, definitely. So I want to talk about one more because there's so many things in here. But like, what essential life skills do you think that college that teens that are going into college, what do they need for for college and for maybe their first job?
Let me share with you. I There's so many different essential life skills, but the ones that I focused on: networking, empathy, doing good. At the time I was writing the book, George Floyd happened, and it
Hmm.
really it struck a chord. Interviewing skills. I think wouldn't it be dynamite, and especially with your background. Like, I remember when I was in college, one of the best classes I took was interviewing, and it would be video recorded, and you could see the playbacks. Like, I think this would be so great, even in high school, to offer a class like that. Um,
Hmm.
Other life skills are um, just doing good. The empathy, um, establishing relationships, knowing how to establish relationships. There's, like I said, there's a whole chapter on LinkedIn. I feel that it's not the glitzy social media channel. It's not TikTok. It's not Instagram. But it's really important to start developing your professional persona earlier. Interviewing is research, right? Like, research skills, because you may not know your career path. And you know how everybody will say, oh, when you're in college, you should do exploratory interviews with people from different companies to figure out what industry you want to be in. Why not
Hmm.
start that in high school, right?
Yeah.
People are generally very open. So I provide questions on what questions to ask, like
Hmm.
when you're in an interview. I also believe the art of thank you, like the art of gratitude. So I have like sample thank you letters. People have lost the art of how to express gratitude. So, and there is an art to it, because you can't wait 2 weeks to send a thank you letter if you're interviewing for a job or for admissions. You've got to get it out like within the ideally 4 hours, but even within a 24-hour window, that's okay. But how do you write a thank you letter that is customized? So I have a couple of different templates, and so it's these are life skills that not all parents can impart on their kids, because they may just not recognize it. Like, even I have like an area, and I'm shocked when the teenager doesn't realize this. Like, even a text is not safe. Do you know how many kids have gotten their admissions revoked because someone did a screenshot of their text that showed like there was like a racist comment, and then sent it to the admissions officer? So it's just a matter of,
Crazy that someone would do that, by the way, just saying.
I know, but you know what,
Yeah,
unfortunately, that it's the world that we live in. And
it is.
so it's, well, it's sad, right? Because there's got to be like a lack of trust, because you just don't know, who to trust. But you just, I think building, I would say my number one thing is learning how to build relationships
Yeah.
is a really, really powerful skill.
One thing I wanted to say, kind of to piggyback off what you were saying about like the text messages, but so um, my first job that I ever had, I worked at Three Times Square, which is at the corner of 42nd and 7th. It was Instanet, which is it was owned by Reuters, so I think it's still a Reuters building, although I'm not sure. But anyway, Three Times Square, and a boss told me, don't send an email, and now this would go for text messages, that you don't feel comfortable being put on a billboard in Times Square. If
You know
you
what
feel
say?
comfortable with that,
I say the same thing. I love it. I love it. It's
yeah,
true. It's true.
yeah. If you feel comfortable with that, that you're not like an asshole or whatever,
Yeah.
then there you go. You just think about that. But
What a
yeah,
great learning for you, right? And it stuck with
yeah,
you.
It
But it's
did. And
true.
I was working in Times Square. So it
Right.
was like,
Yes, yes, you're surrounded by billboards, so it doesn't even necessarily have to be like a social media post, right? It's also
yeah,
like an email. Like you've got to make every word count.
right.
And so it's like you've gotta pause before you send out anything, before you post, and you have to think, would you want a college admissions officer to see it, a future employer, parents? And it's just a matter of being mindful. And also
Hmm.
the rule is that a lot of kids said, yeah, I've had some bad social media behavior, but nobody will find it. That's not true.
Hmm.
Everything is permanent and discoverable.
Definitely. And one more thing I wanted to add, because we were talking about like tips and stuff. And I know one of the things that we did with my stepdaughter is she had some things, and we did this in her in high school and in college, but we were living in New York at the time, and there were things that she was interested in exploring. So we went out to our network, and our kind of family and things like that. And we're just like, so we got her like an internship at Warner Brothers, an internship at an event designer, so we got her internships through friends and people that we knew, so she could figure out what she wanted to do. She did not go down those career paths, um, but what we didn't learn until later. So don't do an internship at Warner Brothers if you actually want a job there. We learned that the hard way. Can you imagine? They wouldn't hire her. You're like, what? Anyway, so if you want
Really?
a job at Warner Brothers, do not do an internship because they won't
That's
hire you.
but the experience, right? The
Yeah,
experience is
it,
priceless. So even if
it is.
you intern at a place and you you end up deciding this isn't for me, like how valuable is that?
It was really good. Yeah, but unfortunately, she worked for the PR department for Warner Brothers, doing their. She did like the press for movie premieres. So she was like psyched, wanted that job. But yeah, they were like, oh yeah, we don't hire interns. Had we known that, because we had a friend that worked at Warner Brothers that got her the job. I'm like, had we known, we would have asked for the favor after we graduated.
Right?
Oh
No,
well.
because a lot of people will take jobs as interns because they know
Yeah.
that if they really do well, they may be given a job offer.
At that time, they would not hire interns. So always do your due diligence, because if you go and find that out, like, do you hire your interns? Ask that as a question. If you have a kid that's doing this, have them ask that as in their interview, because if it's not going to lead to a job, then why? I just don't think you should do it. It doesn't make sense if it could actually
I
hurt you.
yes, yes, and
Yeah.
yes, I agree with you. That is a great question. And when I come out with a revised version of the book, I may steal that from you because I don't
Okay.
think I have that in
Just
there.
just quote me. No.
I will. I totally will. Promise.
Yeah, no, it was quite a learning experience that we were really shocked. We didn't learn this until after like the last month of her internship. We're like, are you kidding me? We did all that work, and our friend put in all that work, and that's what they do. That was kind of sucked. But well, Stacey, I feel like we could talk about this forever. I really appreciate you being on the show, and I learned a lot, and I know that our audience learned a lot. I gave a lot of amazing, great tips. So, where can someone find out more about you?
Yes, and first of all, thank you, Claire. We definitely need to continue the conversation offline.
Yes,
So
definitely.
I have a website to direct people to, brandupbook.com. And also, the book is available on Amazon. If you just Google Stacey Ross Cohen, Amazon, it's Walmart, Target, and Barnes and Noble, and Instagram at Stacey Ross Cohen.
Awesome. And those links will definitely be in the description and the show notes. So thank you so much, Stacey. It was great having you.
Thank you, Claire. I had such a blast. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for listening and watching, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye.